This week on Bloodstream, calling all singers and wannabe singers in the bleeding disorder community, we have an opportunity for you to shine, and we'll tell you all about it. Also, hear more about the Better You Know campaign from NHF and the CDC, and we'll finish up with singer and songwriter Max Feinstein about his new record, Redefine.
At a chronic condition like hemophilia, you're looking at it like it's an app on your phone that takes up like 40% of your memory, and you can't delete it, you can't open it, it's just there.
Hi, I'm your host, Amy Board, and as always, I'm still not a doctor, so make sure to consult with one of those before making any healthcare decisions. And reminder that you can watch Bloodstream on our Bloodstream Media YouTube channel, subscribe to Bloodstream on Apple Pods, or stream episodes directly from bloodstreammedia.com. Thanks for listening, rate, review, and tell a friend, and hey, welcome to Bloodstream. Well, we have so much to get to this week. It is me. You're just going to get me this episode. It's going to be me and you, so hunker down. But we have this fantastic interview with Max Feinstein. It really, truly, I just actually got off the phone with him, and really moving good things, and he's doing really good things, so stick around for that. It's going to be terrific. But of course, before we get into all that, I just want to thank our presenting sponsor, Takeda. Takeda has this website, bleedingdisorders.com, where you can learn all about Takeda's resources for and their commitment to the bleeding disorders community. You can learn more simply by visiting bleedingdisorders.com. So I'd just like to say thank you, Takeda. Hey, some quick reminders before we get into the heart of the episode. We have really cool things. It's that time of year where cool things are happening. It's March and things are happening. Happy Bleeding Disorders Awareness Month, as always. The Teen Impact Awards, the nominations are now open. Have you heard about these things, the Teen Impact Awards? We talk about them all the time, but they are a full-blown award show. Believe Limited puts on a full-blown award show, the Teen Impact Awards, at NHF's BDC conference, the first night of the conference typically. And the awards are meant to celebrate and honor and recognize teenagers in your community doing things for their community. Impact. We're really looking for impact. We like to recognize things that don't typically get recognized. It's a great way to get some stuff on college applications. So think about those teenagers in your life who are doing things, especially in this year of COVID and lockdown. Who are the teenagers that really stepped out of their shell and contributed to their communities? You can nominate folks at teenimpactawards.com. So we hope that you can support some of your teenagers in the community. Also, last year we launched a scholarship in Patrick's brother's name, the Adam Lynch Scholarship, and those applications are opening. So if you have a teenager that's going to go to school next year, that's going to college next year, this is a great opportunity for them to apply for a scholarship. So you can learn all about that through the Teen Impact Awards website at teenimpactawards.org. And another opportunity for singers or want to be singers in the community. This is so exciting. In 2021, we are making our Breaking Through music theater experience accessible to everyone. We are going to offer a groundbreaking nationwide 4-month masterclass called the Ensemble. It's going to be virtual, and we welcome all ages, teenagers and up. That means adults, full-blown adults can be involved in breaking through. Very excited. So any member of the bleeding disorders community, 14 years and older, we're going to be meeting in 2 separate groups. There will be one for high school and college age kids and one for adults. The Ensemble is going to meet, just like I said, virtually to practice music therapy, breathing exercises, and of course to sing together. No experience is necessary. No talent is necessary. All levels are encouraged to join. They're going to meet every other Saturday morning. We begin Saturday, March 13th. You can sign up at breakingthroughhemophilia.com. Again, that is breakingthroughhemophilia.com. And I have to say, personally, I, of course, was a theater kid. I was a choir kid. There's nothing like that experience of joining together with people that you might not hang out with in normal life. To come together towards something, to put on a show, to sing a song. And this is really special. We're able to do this virtually, so you don't have to leave your home. You can pop in and out. You don't have to be there for the first one. So even if you're just curious, you can just go on Zoom and see. We would love to have you join our ensemble. Paul Russell will be directing the ensemble. Again, he has music directed Breaking Through for the past 2 years. He's phenomenal. So we really hope that you guys will grab this opportunity. Again, you can sign up and get more information and kind of see what you think at breakingthroughhemophilia.com. We will have that link in the program notes. Our next segment is brought to you by Genentech. As you know, the Challenge Accepted show is their exciting reality web series hosted by magician and comedian Justin Willman. It shines a light on members of the hemophilia community accepting the challenge to go outside their comfort zone. If you haven't already, check out their reunion episode on YouTube, where the cast of season 1 got together to talk about what they've learned since their episodes aired. Just search the phrase Challenge Accepted show on YouTube to watch. And also, be on the lookout for season 2 premiering soon. So, hey, this is something I wanted to bring to your attention because we talked about it last week. And Flow, the 3rd episode of Flow with Dr. Paula James, just released yesterday on Thursday, March 11th. And I thought it would be worthwhile to bring in, but to bring up the Better You Know campaign, because we haven't talked about it, which is crazy. Better You Know is a campaign to raise awareness of bleeding disorders for those individuals who may experience symptoms but have not yet been diagnosed. This program was developed by the National Hemophilia Foundation in partnership with the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, otherwise known as the CDC. One of the things that I think is great that Dr. James talks about on Flow, so you can listen to that conversation on bloodstreammedia.com. You can listen to the 3rd episode of Flow. But just to have a baseline, I think it's important. The CDC mentions that heavy bleeding during menstruation, anything that lasts longer than 7 days from the time bleeding starts until it ends, is something that, something that lasts longer than 7 days might be worth a trip to the doctor. Flooding or gushing of blood that limits daily activities such as work, school, exercise, or social activities, or passing clots that are bigger than a grape. Soaking a tampon or pad every hour or more, often on your heaviest days, are also signs that perhaps you should go and check with your OBGYN and maybe even further a hematologist. Dr. James mentions all of these things in the 3rd episode of Flow, but I just wanted to bring to your attention the Better You Know campaign because they do have a risk assessment tool on the CDC website. If you go to the CDC website, you can check out Better You Know. You can check out this risk assessment tool and you can kind of go through some questions to see if maybe your menstrual bleeding is not just abnormal, but maybe is disordered a bit, and maybe you should talk to a hematologist. So I just kind of wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. We're going to put links in the program notes where you guys can go, but we think it's important and we really want to partner with the National Hemophilia Foundation and, of course, the CDC on some of their symptoms and what we should look out for. And maybe you are at risk of having a bleeding disorder, or maybe you are at risk for not being treated the way that you should properly. So we just wanted to give you that resource. About 1 in 5 women in the United States experience heavy menstrual bleeding, and if left untreated, heavy menstrual bleeding can place women and girls at increased risk for other health problems. So we really wanted to extend to you that resource. Check it out in the program notes. Thank you to Genentech for supporting this segment, and don't forget to check out the reunion episode by searching Challenge Accepted Show on YouTube. So let's get to our interview today. As I mentioned before, Max Feinstein will be with us, singer-songwriter. He just recorded a new album. He's really, really engaging, and I think you're going to love it. So Max will be with us right after the break. I am here with singer-songwriter Max Feinstein. Max has just concluded the tracking this month for his new record titled Redefine. Max, welcome to the podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so excited to talk about your record. Tell us a little bit about it. What was your inspiration?
It was rehabilitating my right elbow during COVID. So a lot of my prospects for work vanished with the discontinuation of live performance. So I kind of was left to deal with an elbow that was diagnosed as bone on bone arthritic like a decade ago.
Hmm.
And I just kind of like, I was still having problems. My care wasn't dialed in well. It was a moving target. So I just kind of was like, forget that. I'll put project after project after project in front of myself. I'll show up. I'll just push my way through this because it's not like being prudent is helping me. So fast forward 10 years of essentially being in constant motion and having all of your work and your work prospects vanish, you kind of sit with yourself a lot and you think, oh yeah, I'll play a lot more guitar. I'll make time for this thing. No, you're making time for pain now. And eventually I decided to examine physical therapy again for the first time since I was 18. I like checked out on it because I had a doctor who didn't really seem to get hemophilia, and the the therapy felt very form, and it was a newly diagnosed target joint, and that was a whole problem. It was just a very overwhelming experience, real easy to shut down on it. So then I started working with Mike Zolo through HANJ and at the in New Jersey, who is the hemodoc. He's a hemophiliac physical therapist. Why shouldn't I take advantage of this mandated time off to try? And through that, I had atrophy. I had atrophy. I had a lot of bad habits. I had a lot of pain from moving the joint wrong. And I had to put in a lot of effort. And it felt like the first time I'd been able to consistently put in effort without hurting myself.
And that pain was affecting you playing guitar
Oh,
and being creative.
it affected everything. It was like even though it got better over the years in certain ways, it was still a very strong reality that kind of dedicated a lot of my bandwidth. You know how it goes. A chronic condition like hemophilia, you're looking at it like it's an app on your phone that takes up like 40% of your memory, and you can't delete it, you can't open it, it's just there, and you kind of get by with less focus. And I didn't really get to appreciate that as much until I found myself in a better place because I had enough of an ability at this point in my life that I didn't have earlier to put that effort in without hurting myself. It was strange. It was a circumstance that I'm not sure could have happened at any other point in my life prior to now.
One of the things you mentioned on your website that I was so fascinated with is that you have, through, creating this record, you have found your way back to the bleeding disorder community. And I was really moved by that statement because burnout, I believe, can be real and it should be normalized. And so I just want to ask you a little bit about that and what has it been like to re-enter the community? What was your experience?
My first experience was what you would consider a common one. A mother has a child, that child has hemophilia, they turn to their local chapter, and in the right situation, they become part of it. They become part of that community and find a way to enrich it. And my mother was exceptional at that. My mother's name was Anna D. Simone, and she was incredibly active within the state of New Jersey for hemophilia advocacy in ways that I currently can't even fathom because they happened so early in my life and they were so nuanced, as everything that happens in this community is, that as a kid you really can't appreciate politics, laws, and medical stuff. So my mother was heavily involved at HANJ, and as you know, this community has a way of overwhelming us with not only the camaraderie but the commitments, and a balance is quite difficult to find, which is amazing. It's amazing that we have this community at all. So I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but there is a reality of the community feeling almost insular and consuming uh, if you're not careful and if you don't appreciate that. I didn't. So I burnt out. I wanted to be involved. I loved my mom and I wanted to like be parts of this stuff. But what you hear a lot is men, especially with this disorder, as they learn to navigate it, they feel resentful towards it and anything that has to do with it because it seems super almost like you're celebrating being hurt. If I could put a, an irrational past emotion, through that lens of cynicism that a kid with hemophilia might have at like 9, 10 years old. So you kind of try to break away if you're feeling that way. So eventually I sort of did around my teens as I tried to focus on music and pursuits of music that would often prioritize my time over the community to the point where I was working a lot of nights and I was in an area that wasn't convenient to access community functions from. I checked out. I made a choice to check out because I felt like this wasn't going to get any better and I needed to do things on my own terms, I suppose. What happened, fast forward to 2019, I'd worked by and large as a sideman most of my career. I did like a solo record in 2012 because I wasn't sure. That was right after my arthritis. My mother was on her deathbed. I was in a place of grief and distress. And I thought, if my arm's going to fall off or whatever, I'm going to get this out. I'm going to get something out to show for myself like this if I got to put it down. Luckily, I didn't, but that was sort of where that went. And then I got to be part of bands and work towards that romantic, greater collaborative good, as well as the romantic sideman thing. I think of like David Bowie's Mick Ronson or Adrian Belew for like the Talking Heads. Like that sideman role to me has been a romantic thing as well as a guitar player. So I got to do a lot of that and support a lot of very charismatic, talented songwriters and learn. So in the press and the promotion of those things, you don't really talk about hemophilia. That becomes detrimental to the cycle because it's kind of like, oh yeah, we were in Nashville recording this thing and our lead guitarist's blood doesn't work, like it's not a great talking point in that context.
Right.
So I kind of kept mum about it in that way. I wasn't shy about it with my touring companions and with my bandmates because to me that was important to communicate, to demonstrate that I was managing this, because my biggest worry, especially on the road or at any job, is that a person who doesn't know what they're looking at when they hear that you're a hemophiliac, when a person hears that, they immediately in their mind consider you a liability. They consider if you're going to be a liability to what they're trying to do. They wonder where their responsibility lies in general, let alone if you become in crisis. So I got good at explaining it and being very casual about it and telling them that, hey, basically I will let you know if this is a problem that I need your help with. I've got this managed. If you don't like needles, then every couple of days, take a 15-minute walk around 10 a.m. I got a thing I got to do, Yeah. So I tried to make it as pithy as I could. I almost think like Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, where like there's a scene where he is like in front of a bunch of art or something, addressing a crowd, and he's like, "We are here to show you art and feed you ribs. If you like the ribs, you will give us money." End of speech. Like, I tried to make it that.
Yeah.
And in doing that, it became clear, especially when, I was in Nashville recording a record at like a Grammy factory, basically. It was a highlight of my life working with this band BWQ. And we recorded a record that's out called One by One. And I had a nosebleed the entire 2-week time we were out. Like every day I had nosebleeds. And
just had to explain it away.
It became a source of levity, thankfully,
Right. Right.
because we were, there's a lot of comedy. I have a background in comedy as well. I've been working within improv comedy for about as long as I've been making music, which is 20 years. I got to train at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater a bit. It's been the most valuable thing to me, if I'm being honest. Um, but through all that, I got to educate my friends,
Right.
my comrades,
Right.
and show them that, essentially I got to humanize what is normally an abstract in someone's life that they're not experiencing themselves. So I was grateful that it wasn't a problem. That was how I saw it at the time. Um, and then,
But it certainly wasn't a talking point, like you mentioned with the press. Like it wasn't a talking point, and with this record, you're really trying to blend the two almost in a
yeah,
way. Like this is, your music platform and an advocacy platform. What has that meant to you to kind of chart this new path and blend the two?
it meant finding something in myself, because this was a fluke for me, because I released a short EP called Betamax that
Hmm.
same year in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And in the effort of trying to get press for that, a reporter named Jim Testa, who's a friend of mine, um, asked if I had a hook. And I said, all right, let's do it. It was something that, I was at a place where I could do that. I was really not in a great mental headspace, but I was becoming more brazen,
Hmm.
and I was in a place where looking back on it now, I realized that not talking about it was a very toxic thing for me. That I wasn't sharing nearly as much as I thought I was, and that in starting to talk about it and to let people in, I had realized I was sort of starving myself. It's like that first drink of water after you haven't had a cup all morning, and you're like, oh, wait, I feel like a human. I'm starved for this right now. What was I doing before? It jumped out of my hands, Amy. Like that interview's been shared almost 1,000 times.
Wow.
It was a surprise to me, because it showed me that I really had been very stoic about this, and it became something that I saw as an opportunity to educate people that I didn't see a lot of in the community, because the community is small, and it's highly dedicated to its ecosystem
Hmm.
and to the security of its people. It's highly dedicated towards legal advocacy. We move legislative mountains regularly. We have an ecosystem in which there is a lot of financial help and a lot of ways to make sure somebody isn't without medicine in America, that it's amazingly fortunate in its way. But pressing outwards, the perspective I have had and continue to have is that we are often seen as a footnote to the story of AIDS, despite being perhaps this centrifugal part of it. From my understanding, I read a Freddie Mercury biography, and of course that deals with AIDS and HIV a bit, and they are absolutely referencing at one point like the Hemophilia Association of the UK or something. We had to. That was what happened in that time. But what are we beyond that? We are two references on The Simpsons, one reference on, I think, Criminal Minds or Psych, and two references on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and like one reference on Family Guy. Like, that's what we are.
That were incorrect. A lot of the statements on those television shows were
They're throwaway things.
misleading. They're throwaway things. To expand on that a little bit, the album is called Redefine,
Mhm.
and you want to redefine hemophilia. And I feel like this plays a little bit into that. What does that mean to you? What does redefining hemophilia mean to you?
For my personal North Star of this all, it
Mm-hmm.
means to redefine hemophilia in the eyes of people who have no idea how to grasp it. It means being able to tell people about it in a way that doesn't make this sound like a dramatic situation, and allow them to be like, oh, he's just a dude most of the time. Sometimes his blood doesn't work, but he's kind of got it under control. kind of, not to rank severity of disorders, but I feel like diabetes is a bit more popular to understand, at least in terms of, oh, hey, he does this and he avoids this and he thinks about it this way and he's, got it under control. Like, it's not, I don't mean to compare the two in any scientific way, any valid way, other than there are more diabetics than hemophiliacs. So, of course, it's going to be.
I think you make a great point, though, because diabetes, especially juvenile diabetes, has been portrayed in pop culture.
Yeah.
I mean, the book that I read, the book series I read as a child, The Babysitter's Club, had a character. One of the main characters was a diabetic. And so you just know what that world is.
Yeah.
Steel Magnolias and those types of things. And I think you're right. We don't have someone with hemophilia in pop culture.
It's hard because there are so few of us, and it is such a dictating thing that it's easy to, even in reality, feel like you're defined by this, especially when you have joint damage. It's easy to feel like, I don't know, I guess it's always felt like all I am. And so I tried to pick up guitar as a way to feel like I could be something else.
Oh, that's profound to me. What's your favorite lyric off the album?
That's an interesting question, because the words really have mattered to me quite a bit on this record. This record is 7 songs. I believe I've settled into a narrative that I hadn't initially intended that feels very resonant to sort of this arc. And the lyrics to me have been important in the sense of trying to be very reasonable and, again, sort of almost like a diagram of a situation, so that I can come back to it and feel like I've learned something from it. So, like, each of the songs sort of helps me find a solution to a problem that I couldn't find somewhere else, because when you're looking for solutions in the wrong place, that's just kind of escapism. So I found myself, since I was mostly writing as a guitarist in a band, or writing with a portfolio mindset, or writing for other people, I found myself finally getting in touch with my own self and writing for myself and trying to find things that were reasonable and not overly dramatic. Like, the music could be nice and dramatic, but a big example of this, I didn't want to, because this is effectively a self-help record. It's me being like, yeah, this is how I helped myself. I hope there's catharsis for you to find in this. It's through the hemophilia lens, but ultimately this is a human condition thing, I suppose. So the last line of the record is, "Continue attempting the progress, may you arrive." And that, to me, was something I had to get just right. Because originally on paper, it was, "You will arrive." And while that may be a more encouraging sentiment of, to me, it feels like a promise. I don't know what someone else's arrival is. I can't define that for them. That might give them the expectation that my thing is their thing, and their thing is their own thing. And I don't want to promise something that would be dishonest. So to wish somebody well and say, "May you arrive," it feels almost like a send off, like a goodbye and farewell, rather than you're gonna, then at the end. So this record has this sort of story arc. The first song is supposed to depict coming out of a depressive haze. We observe a specimen today, shouting at the voids, staring at the walls, petri dish in abject disarray. Here I am, but I will not remain. Hand over hand, draw the lines. So this thing of effort, the idea of displaying the effort, not the after, not the middle, but the mid-fall, if you will. The thing where it's not polished, it's not, it's not complete, it hasn't arrived anywhere. This is what arrival looks like, and the process of arrival anyway, and in the process of the little things and the efforts, ideally we arrive. So, like, from there it goes to sort of a rising action from exposure to dealing with sort of negative self-talk and this sort of fearless inventory of feeling like you never actually put effort into anything. Stop the madness. Did you ever try to stop the madness? Your every fight you ever fought, all the squandered time you bought, but never once you thought to stop the problems in your head? Well, grit your teeth, dig in, and stop the madness, except mean. So, and from there, it's like reflecting on my childhood, and I had this lateral phonetics exercise The song is called Charades, and it's sort of a revelation, more compassionate. These were the games you'd play that got you through the day you saw no other way, with your life up on display. Days were long, days long gone away, days you used to scheme, Ophelia, how you'd get away. Days you used to dream, Ophelia. Makes you just want to scream, Ophelia, doesn't it? It was a shower thought. I wasn't happy about it at the time. I was like, this is what it's going to be, isn't it? We're going with this. This is like, I love it. And I say this with all the affection for the thing, but it felt very silly while I was trying to be sincere. So it took a minute, and it kind of takes you by surprise. So I do feel a pride of it. And that whole thing, a pain you got to settle into before you forgive. This idea of trying to process where I was, and each of these songs has sort of these, I don't know what else to call them, but they're sort of these devices of the level and the struggle. The struggle is supposed to be like these extended pieces that demonstrate effort, that demonstrate control, or the actual sort of climactic struggle, and ultimately each song is triumphant in its way. And then there's the level in which one is not deluding themselves, and there's not a whole lot of hyperbole. A kind of pain you have to settle into before you forgive. Such a bloody, boring way to try to live. So easy to tune out all the static when you pull the plug. While we're here, let's try to dial in. Stuff like that, where I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man? And that's a big thing too. There's a lot of anger in this community. There's a lot of, we are men and women in pain. We are men and women of tragedy. Unfortunately, both of the body and of the complications thereafter.
Yeah.
And a song called Pass happens, which is about reflecting at who you've been to people. This is the battle you have won. This is the damage you have done. This is the person you've become. It's just the way you feel right now, but it'll pass. You're coming to appreciation for the way you feel inside. Lack of self-control is turning you into a burning house. Friends and loved ones keep their distance, rightly so, until such time it is you come to an appreciation for the way you feel inside. So, the reality of my own anger problems into a more compassionate, that's almost like that song is like repressing a panic attack in the best ways. I get to do these ridiculous vocals and be a punk and like feel very goofy. And then a song called Dear Anxious happens, which is kind of about coming back to the community in its way. Set the mood, name the tune, lead the way, they'll follow you. Don't deny what you have found. Build the kingdom tall upon the blood and sound. So that sort of idea, if you're doing the right thing, follow through. You're on the hook now. You're in it. Come on. You can be special for somebody, maybe. You can be special. You can feel you're feeling fulfilled. You feel like you're satisfying this thing that your mother dedicated her life to. Come around now to astound. So spread your wings and drop the tude. So, So from there, we get the song that deals most overtly with hemophilia called Bleed, which I'm going to invite the community and anyone who wants to ally themselves with us to join. You're all going to join Team Ophelia with me, because this is a big old grunge pep rally. My disease won't let me be, my disease that can't be seen. My disease won't let me be when all I ever do is bleed. I know that nothing I could ever say could ever take away the pain, but I'm coming to appreciate the origin of codependent rage. Give me an H! So the song has this whole ending of give me an H, give me an H. And for a while that was something that I saw cynically as like, who's excited to have hemophilia? But at the same time, this is an absurd disorder. Go with it. Be absurd. Let's call it what it is, which is a ridiculous, chaotic thing. And maybe we can have this weird, shared enthusiasm over absurdity and not be so alone. So I invite everybody to join Team Ophelia and give me an H. You can do it from your phone through the Speakpipe app. Ideally, that will be up by the end of the week. That's what part of my day is today after this. From there is the sort of the capstone, the redefine. On its face, songs are empty words bordering on the absurd half the time. Let's redefine the type of vernaculars we might use, alter the lexicon till we break through. And in spite of ourselves, we can thrive, or we can try. Not even thrive. That's almost too much of a guarantee, So the idea of trying to be like, yeah, give it your go, man. Watching and waiting will be the unmaking. In time to quiet the mind's machinations, continue attempting the process, may you arrive. I may need a decoder ring for the first. No, the community. This is a community that learns medical jargon while learning arithmetic. Like,
Yeah.
we're fine. I'm not condescending anyone.
I don't believe you are either.
That's something that was important to me.
Oh, Max. You mentioned your mother. What do you think she would be thinking if she watched you do this?
I don't know, because there's a lot of absurdism to this that may have been beyond her appreciation. I have a friend of mine, a comedian friend of mine, whose only attachment to our community is me, created a character for another purpose. It's just kind of a red smudge with arms and legs called Claudia. And I saw this and I felt so seen of this. And now, as a result of this and her gracious compassion, I have this character, Claudia Bugatti. And it's just this absurdism thing that I think my mother might have not necessarily jived with. She was an open-minded woman, but I feel as though she would have seen a lack of shame as perhaps a lack of dignity. I think she would appreciate the effort. I think eventually she would get the point, even if it wasn't her cup of tea. But I think she would be happy that the prodigal son doth return, as it were, you know?
So tell us, how can we listen? How can we support? What can we do to make sure that this gets into the homes of as many people as we can?
So I am currently doing a nonprofit partnered crowdfunding campaign on Fractured Atlas. So contributions to this are considered gifts. They're tax deductible. I am raising money through that. And you can find my music as it exists already on Bandcamp, on Spotify, whatever you prefer to listen to your music on. I'm grateful for your attention. I will have links to give you for the relevant things to the campaign for Redefine Hemophilia, as well as give me an H, because I would love to see as many people, you get a record credit, man. That's so cool. Like, I would love to be able to get the community on the record and feel like they can participate with me. Let's all do it together, man.
Absolutely. You can find those links on our program notes, and we will make sure we'll push them out on our socials as well. Max, thank you so much for joining us today. It was fascinating, but it was moving to me. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your work and your story. Thank you, Max. Thank you for being with us, of course. Check out the program notes, you guys, to find where you can listen and follow and support Max's work. I always have to say thank you to our producer, Greg, for bearing with me. And we just want to highlight that next week we're going to have a very special episode for you, so make sure you stick around. And happy Bleeding Disorders Awareness Month. Thank you to the Bloodstream team, and thank you all for listening. And of course, thanks to Kata for being the presenting sponsor of the Bloodstream podcast. bleedingdisorders.com to learn more. And that is all for this episode. Have a bleeding disorders or healthcare topic you'd like to hear us discuss more? Is there an expert or a guest that you're dying to hear from? Want to inquire about casting opportunities for Bloodstream's narrative and docu-style podcast series? Well, email us at mailbag@bloodstreammedia.com or connect with Bloodstream Media on social media. You'll find all of us, Patrick, Natalie, me, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can check out LinkedIn. You can follow Patrick on LinkedIn. He loves it. Check out the program notes in this episode on your podcast player or on bloodstreammedia.com, where you will find links and information related to the stories and segments featured on this episode. I am your host, Amy Board. Thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, take self-care of yourself, everybody. Bye-bye.